On November 8th, 1942, at Sidi Bouzid in Tunisia, the morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain as Oberritter Wilhelm Schmidt crouched behind a stone wall, gripping his Carabiner 98K rifle tightly in both hands. The bolt felt familiar. After 3 years of service, load 1 round, fire. Pull back the bolt, eject the casing, push forward, load the next, aim, fire again. This rhythm of war had carried German infantry across Poland, France, and deep into Russia. With only 5 rounds in the internal magazine, each demanded deliberate, manual cycling, and Schmidt had been taught that the Americans now advancing across the dusty field were inexperienced, soft, and unprepared for real combat. Their equipment inferior and training inadequate. But within the next 60 seconds, those assumptions would shatter. When the Americans opened fire, the sound was unlike anything Schmidt had heard before. Not the steady crack and pause of bolt-action rifles, but the relentless roar of semi-automatic fire, uninterrupted and merciless. 8 rounds could be fired as quickly as the trigger was pulled. No pause to work a bolt. No interruption in aimed fire. While Schmidt barely managed 3 shots, the American opposite him had already emptied his entire clip and reloaded. This was the M1 Garand rifle, a weapon that would dismantle German infantry doctrine. Its psychological effect on soldiers trained to believe in German superiority, proving as devastating as its firepower. What unfolded was not merely a clash of arms, but the forced transformation of tactics across an entire military establishment. The roots of German confidence stretched back through centuries of military tradition, embodied in their standard infantry weapon, the Carabiner 98K, adopted on June 21, 1935. Considered the pinnacle of bolt-action rifle design, it was accurate out to 550 yards with iron sights, rugged enough to function in mud and frozen conditions, and simple enough for conscripts to maintain, chambered for the powerful 7.92 times 57 mm Mauser cartridge. It could punch through substantial cover, and in skilled hands, it had already conquered much of Europe. German doctrine emphasized deliberate, aimed fire from prepared positions, with infantry training focused on precision rather than volume. A disciplined soldier could fire about 15 aimed rounds per minute with practiced efficiency. And while the British Lee Enfield's 10-round magazine allowed faster rates of fire, German officers dismissed this as a trade-off that compromised accuracy. Against Polish, French, and British forces armed with similar bolt-action rifles, the Kar 98K had proven more than sufficient. So when American forces entered large-scale combat during Operation Torch in North Africa in November 1942, German intelligence assessed their opponents with cautious confidence. Reports acknowledged America's vast industrial resources, but characterized its soldiers as inexperienced, overly reliant on firepower, and lacking tactical discipline. The M1 Garand was noted as a semi-automatic rifle of interest, but it was not regarded as a weapon that posed any particular concern. German analysts had noted the M1 Garand's 8-round capacity and self-loading mechanism, but they dismissed it as heavier and less practical than the Kar 98K, 9.5 pounds compared to 8.2. Their assessment concluded that while the American rifle offered a higher volume of fire, it sacrificed the accuracy and reliability that came with the simplicity of bolt-action design. Yet in reality, the M1 had already seen extensive use in combat since December 8, 1941, when Japanese forces invaded the Philippines just a day after Pearl Harbor. Shipments from the months before had equipped the U.S. Army's Philippine Division and the elite Philippine Scouts, who used the rifle so effectively that Japanese troops often believed they were facing machine gun fire. General Douglas MacArthur himself praised the weapon in February 1942 for its flawless performance in the dust and grit of foxhole warfare. By the time German troops faced American infantry in North Africa, the M1 Garand had already proven itself in nearly a year of brutal jungle combat. The shock came swiftly on the open plains when Schmidt's unit, expecting to halt the American advance with disciplined precision fire, instead met a storm of bullets, unlike anything they had faced before. It wasn't machine gun fire. They knew how to counter that, but a relentless, uninterrupted stream of rifle fire. While German soldiers could manage perhaps 15 aimed rounds per minute with their Kar 98Ks, every American rifleman was firing 30 to 40 rounds, each shot accurately placed. The mathematics were inescapable. In a 2-minute firefight, a German might fire 30 rounds, while his American counterpart, with an M1 Garand, could unleash 80. Each time a German soldier lifted his head to fire, multiple rounds cracked back instantly. Suppression became impossible, and the very foundation of German infantry tactics began to collapse under the weight of sheer firepower. More critically, every German soldier firing a Kar 98K had to break his sight picture, work the bolt, reacquire his target, and then fire again, while an American simply pulled the trigger 8 times in rapid succession, his aim barely disturbed by the rifle's modest recoil. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic design was built on a gas-operated system. When a round fired, propellant gases were diverted through a small port in the barrel into a cylinder beneath it, driving a piston that cycled the action. In less than a second, the spent casing was ejected and a fresh round chambered, all while the rifle remained closed, keeping barrel and sights aligned for the next shot. Accuracy did not suffer despite the speed of fire, Springfield Armory tests showed the M1 could hold 4-minute of angle groups, a 4-inch spread at 100 yards, with many production rifles performing even better. General George S. Patton recognized the weapon's revolutionary impact, declaring in a January 26, 1945, letter to Major General Levin H. Campbell, Jr., "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised." This was no exaggeration. Patton understood the Garand had redefined infantry combat. One soldier with an M1 possessed the firepower of several armed, with bolt-action rifles, yet without sacrificing accuracy, reliability, or range. By mid-1943, entire U.S. Army divisions were being outfitted with the weapon, and between 1937 and 1945, nearly 4.5 million M1 rifles were manufactured, ensuring that American infantry would carry into battle not just a rifle, but a technological advantage that reshaped the nature of modern warfare. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts produced over 3.5 million M1 Garand rifles, while Winchester Repeating Arms in Connecticut contributed another 513,880. By the time Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day in June 1944, virtually every American rifleman carried an M1, a feat of industrial and military achievement unmatched in history. Millions of soldiers armed with semi-automatic rifles, while their opponents still relied on bolt-action weapons. The rifle's specifications told only part of its story. Chambered for the powerful .306 Springfield cartridge, in service since 1906, it launched a 150-grain bullet at roughly 2,800 feet per second, delivering lethal energy even at extended ranges. Its 8-round en-bloc clip was inserted directly into the rifle's action and, when empty, ejected itself with the distinctive metallic ping. Though some feared this sound might give away a soldier's position, veterans later recalled that the din of battle made it inaudible beyond a few feet. What truly set the Garand apart was its legendary reliability. Whether in the dust of North Africa, the mud of Italy, the bitter cold of Northern Europe, or later, the freezing Korean winters, the rifle functioned with minimal maintenance. Field stripping required no tools. A soldier could remove the operating rod and bolt, clean them, and reassemble the rifle within minutes. German reports consistently acknowledged this rugged dependability with a mix of respect and frustration, for it undercut their reliance on machine guns for suppression and bolt-action riflemen for precision fire. The M1 Garand blurred that line entirely, giving every American infantryman the firepower of several soldiers, without compromising accuracy or endurance. The MG-34 and later the MG-42 were among the finest machine guns of the war, offering devastating rates of fire. But they were crew-served weapons, dependent on gunners, loaders, and ammunition bearers, and vulnerable to artillery or flanking attacks. The M1 Garand shifted this balance entirely. With every American rifleman armed with a semi-automatic weapon, a single infantry squad could generate firepower approaching that of a German machine gun team. Yet this power was spread across 8 or 9 soldiers, rather than concentrated in one position. Suppressing an American squad meant suppressing each man individually, an almost impossible task. The Italian campaign, beginning in September 1943, drove this reality home. From the landings at Salerno through the grinding battles toward Rome, German troops repeatedly found themselves outshot by American riflemen. A March 1944 report from the 94th Infantry Division, captured after Rome's fall, bluntly acknowledged that encounters with American infantry usually resulted in German forces being pinned down by rifle fire alone, even when they held superior defensive ground. The report urged an increase in machine gun deployment to counter the American advantage in rifle firepower. German High Command recognized the seriousness of the problem and sought technological solutions. Their first effort was the Gewehr 41, introduced in 1941 in 2 competing versions, the Mauser G41M and the Walther G41W. Both were deeply flawed. German specifications prohibited drilling a gas port into the barrel, fearing it would shorten service life, forcing designers into awkward gas trap systems at the muzzle. These mechanisms, fouled quickly, were heavy, unwieldy, and production of the flawed G41 remained extremely limited, with only between 6,000 and 15,000 rifles manufactured before the design was abandoned. German engineers, learning from battlefield realities, examined captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles and conceded that the very gas port system they had initially rejected was both practical and reliable. Their next effort, the Gewehr 43, was introduced in October 1943, featuring a simplified gas system and a detachable 10-round magazine. The G43 was lighter, more dependable than its predecessor, and far better suited to frontline use. By war's end, approximately 42,700 rifles had been built, with around 53,000 equipped with telescopic sights for use as designated marksman weapons. Soldiers who received the G43 generally valued it. For every 50 Kar 98K rifles produced, only a single G43 was manufactured, meaning the overwhelming majority of German infantry continued to rely on bolt-action weapons until the final days of the conflict. Even those who did receive the G43 found it inferior to the American M1 Garand. The German rifle was more complicated, harder to maintain in field conditions, and plagued by spare parts shortages as German industry collapsed under relentless Allied bombing and resource depletion. The fundamental failure lay in Germany's late recognition of the importance of a semi-automatic service rifle. They had entered the war without one and never closed the gap. By contrast, the M1 Garand was not merely a weapon of higher firepower. It reshaped American infantry doctrine itself. Training shifted to emphasize rapid target acquisition and continuous streams of accurate fire, assuming that every rifleman, American infantry squads, advanced with devastating effectiveness. Half the squad laid down covering fire, while the other half maneuvered. And with every man armed with the semi-automatic M1 Garand, this tactic became overwhelming. At Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944, even the heavily fortified German 352nd Infantry Division could not withstand the sheer volume of American fire. Machine gun crews were quickly suppressed under the storm of rifle fire. In the Normandy hedgerows, where combat took place at close range, the M1 Garand's rapid and sustained fire gave Americans a decisive edge. German tactics of a few riflemen providing cover no longer worked. The covering fire from Garands was simply too heavy. U.S. Army analysis after the war confirmed that American squads inflicted higher than expected casualties, largely due to the firepower advantage of the M1 Garand. Even when outnumbered, American infantry could prevail with cover and sufficient ammunition. Germany's answer to this problem was the revolutionary STG-44, the world's first true assault rifle, firing an intermediate cartridge from a 30-round magazine. Capable of both semi-automatic and fully automatic fire, the STG-44 represented revolutionary thinking in small arms design. With approximately 425,977 produced, mostly in 1944 and 1945. Yet, like the G-43, it arrived too late and in insufficient numbers, with most German infantry never seeing one, and those who did often lacked adequate ammunition, as Germany's industrial capacity collapsed. Meanwhile, the story of the M1 Garand had begun decades earlier. Its creator, John Cantius Garand, born on January 1, 1888, in Saint-Rémy, Quebec, moved with his family to the United States in 1899 and began working at the Springfield Armory on November 4, 1919. For nearly 2 decades, he refined his semi-automatic rifle design, experimenting with different operating systems and calibers. Initially, the U.S. Army favored a .276 caliber cartridge with superior ballistics to the .306, but in 1932, General Douglas MacArthur, then Army Chief of Staff, insisted on retaining the .306 to use existing ammunition stockpiles and ensure compatibility with machine guns, a decision that delayed adoption but ultimately proved wise. Through the early 1930s, Garand continued perfecting the rifle, subjecting it to rigorous testing at Ardennes Proving Ground and Springfield Armory. Identified flaws were corrected. The complex gas trap system was replaced with a simpler gas port system. The trigger mechanism was improved, and the stock was redesigned for better ergonomics. Finally, on January 9, 1936. The rifle was officially adopted as the U.S. rifle, caliber .3 M1. Initial production was modest, with only a few thousand rifles made in 1937 and 1938. But as war loomed, production rapidly expanded. The M1 Garand served American forces through World War II, the Korean War, and into the early years of Vietnam, remaining the standard service rifle until the M14 was officially adopted in 1957 and designated as the replacement on March 26, 1958, with first deliveries beginning in July 1959. The full transition across all units took until 1961, though M1 Garands continued to see service with Reserve and National Guard units well into the 1970s. Beyond its longevity, the rifle had a profound psychological impact on German soldiers during World War II. Conditioned by propaganda to believe in German technological and tactical superiority, they were confronted with the harsh reality that individual American infantrymen, armed with semi-automatic rifles and properly trained, could consistently outfight them. Post-war studies of small unit actions confirm that American soldiers inflicted disproportionate casualties in firefights, while American losses from German rifle fire were comparatively low. Clear evidence of the M1's combat effectiveness. German attempts to offset this advantage through superior tactics and positioning were only partially successful. The sheer volume of accurate fire from American infantry often suppressed enemy positions and allowed maneuver elements to close with and destroy defensive lines. The legacy of the M1 Garand extends far beyond its service life. It demonstrated the crucial advantage of semi-automatic rifles, showing that infantry could significantly increase their rate of fire without sacrificing accuracy, a principle that became foundational in post-war small arms development. Every modern infantry rifle, from the AK-47 to the M16 and today's assault rifles, owes a conceptual debt to the M1 Garand. The rifle proved that semi-automatic operation was not only feasible for military service, but essential for infantry effectiveness. The encounters of German soldiers with American forces armed with M1 Garands marked a pivotal moment where technological superiority collided with traditional military excellence, showing how decisive equipment could be on the battlefield. German infantry training, doctrine, and soldier quality were objectively excellent, yet even these strengths could not overcome inferior weaponry. The M1 Garand provided American infantrymen with the ability to fight effectively even when outnumbered, win firefights against veteran troops, and advance against positions that should have been nearly impregnable. From the Philippines to North Africa, Sicily to Normandy, and from the hedgerows of France to the Rhine, the Garand served faithfully, earning its reputation as one of the finest military rifles ever designed, and fully justifying Patton's famous praise. German soldiers learned through hard experience across multiple theaters that American firepower made possible by the Garand, posed a fundamental tactical challenge that their bolt-action rifles could not meet. The M1 Garand demonstrated that warfare had entered a new era. The days of massed infantry armed with bolt-action rifles were over. Semi-automatic rifles had become the future, and the Garand made that reality unmistakably clear. German infantry, the mathematics of infantry firepower, remained constant throughout the war. In the time it took a German soldier to fire 3 carefully aimed shots from his Kar 98K, an American soldier with an M1 Garand could fire 8, hitting 2 to 3 times as many targets when both were equally trained. At the squad level, this disparity became overwhelming, giving American infantry a numerical advantage in firepower, even when outnumbered. Post-war German military theorists consistently identified this firepower gap as a critical factor in their defeats. Former General Hassan Manteuffel, who commanded the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge beginning December 16, 1944, wrote in his memoirs that American infantry firepower exceeded German firepower, even when Germans held defensive positions. The human cost of this imbalance was evident in casualty statistics, while factors like artillery, air power, tactics, and terrain affected outcomes. Studies of small unit actions consistently showed American infantry inflicting disproportionate casualties in firefights. Each soldier's rifle made a measurable difference, and German casualties from rifle fire were significant throughout the war, with the M1 Garand deserving substantial credit. Ultimately, the Garand's impact extended far beyond its technical specifications. It symbolized American industrial foresight, engineering excellence, and commitment to equipping soldiers with superior tools. While Germany struggled with complex semi-automatic rifle programs that never reached meaningful production, the United States had entered the war with its military fully equipped with proven, reliable, semi-automatic rifles. This advantage, multiplied across millions of soldiers and thousands of engagements, contributing materially to Allied victory. The distinctive sound of an M1 Garand firing, the metallic clang of its clip ejecting, and the sight of American infantry advancing with rifles at the ready became synonymous with Allied success in both Europe and the Pacific. German soldiers quickly learned to recognize and respect that sound, knowing it signified opponents capable of delivering overwhelming fire. That advantage influenced countless engagements, saved American lives, and helped bring the war to a swifter conclusion. The M1 Garand stands as a testament to what properly designed military equipment can achieve, proving that investing in soldiers' capabilities and providing them with the best tools yields tangible dividends in combat effectiveness and mission success. Serving the American military for over 2 decades and equipping troops in 3 major conflicts, the rifle's influence on subsequent firearm design continues to this day. For German infantry who faced it, the M1 Garand was an unmistakable lesson in technological reality, Superior equipment in skilled hands profoundly shapes the outcome of battle.